Hi, my name is Ray Bendisi. I'm managing editor here at Tech and Learning. And right this morning, we're talking with Stephanie Smith Budhai, Associate Professor of Education at Newman University and author of 5 books on remote education, remote learning. And our subject is trying to handle cheating in remote learning environments. And this is something that Stephanie, you've written about quite a bit, right? And
Yes,
discussed in kind of area of expertise, correct?
yes, Ray, I have.
Yeah. So let's start with the kind of a little bit of the basics. What are maybe some things that educators should be aware of in regard to cheating in remote learning environments?
Oh, I think that cheating in general, there's a psychology behind the reasons for why students cheat, and every student may have a different reason. But I think that in a remote environment, especially, it's really important for educators to create a nurturing environment, a virtual academic environment, where failure is used as a springboard for growth, and where students are encouraged to like really be risk takers and try. I mean, they are in a new environment, so they're already taking a risk. But I think that's something that educators should be aware of, the environment that they set and how they really have it in a way that students really feel free to show what they know, but not be concerned about, I'm going to do bad, I'm going to get a bad grade, I'm going to fail.
Right. It's almost like, and now that you say that, it makes me think about the whole, sometimes we get so focused on grades, we kind of get away from the idea that, that it's supposed to be learning and it's okay to make mistakes and you don't have to be perfect all the time. And I think you're talking about creating an environment along those lines, right?
Yes, definitely. It's so important for students and for educators to have that sort of symbiotic environment where it just feels like a safe space to learn. And like I said, to learn from your mistakes. If there are mistakes, there will be mistakes.
Right. That's part of it, right? Accepting that there will be mistakes.
Right.
So along those lines, what are maybe some best practices to consider for educators should consider to help reduce cheating? Because I think eliminating it is that outside the question?
Well, I mean, that could be a goal. That could definitely be the ultimate goal, to eliminate it. And there may be classrooms where there is no cheating. So I definitely think that we can shoot for the stars there. But to reduce, I think that educators should really talk about what academic integrity is with students from a young age. I mean, they can do this from sort of talking about digital citizenship and what it means to be a good citizen in this online world, what ethics are, how to have ethical behaviors. And really, we really need to teach students about information literacy. They need to know what cheating looks like in an online course, and how it's different from a face-to-face course and how it's the same. And I think that students need to know how to be critical consumers of all this content that they get online. They believe everything. They really have to think more closely about it. And I think us as educators, we have to teach that information literacy. We need to teach students how to properly cite sources. So it's not that you can't use other information, but it's giving credit to the authors. So I think intentional teaching of those would be great best practices of academic integrity, digital citizenship, and information literacy. I think that's a great way to sort of reduce, eventually eliminate.
Right. Those are great spots to start. I also, as you were talking, I was thinking of it's really kind of an emphasis on those 5 C's, right? On the communication, collaboration, a little bit, critical thinking actually comes to mind there. The kind of really encouraging those skills, right? And not just, what's the phrase? This is not my phrase, but they use the term intellectual bulimia, right? Just regurgitating facts.
Right.
And I always think that, you're talking about kind of creating an environment that looks, that is a little different than that, right?
Sure. It's interesting that you mentioned the C's, because my first book is actually called Teaching the 4 C's with Technology. And we talk about, aligning standards and Common Core and looking at creativity, critical thinking, communication and collaboration. We focus on the 4 C's instead of the 5 C's, but definitely it's so important. And they are 21st century skills, soft skills that students are going to need to be successful in whatever job they end up getting, because who knows, their jobs, we're preparing students for jobs right now that don't even exist. So
yeah, very true. So as educators are kind of looking at this, what are maybe some, we talk a lot about what to do. I always like to kind of think about, you can learn a lot. You talked about mistakes. What are things, maybe that are potential pitfalls or mistakes that are kind of common that, are maybe places to learn or things to avoid?
I think one thing is, and this sort of goes back to what we just talked about, is putting too much pressure on students to earn high scores. Like, we really have to go back to what learning is about. And to me, it's about growth and developing, right? And everybody want to learn and develop at their own pace. Teachers in the online environments, there's so many different tools with badges and leaderboards and things that we can do to sort of focus on students' progress, right? So we want to reward them making progress, not necessarily getting an A, but celebrate those small wins and send them different digital, activations saying, like, you did a good job. I think that also maybe, one of the pitfalls could be giving students too many assessments that don't necessarily correlate with what students are learning in the class. So teachers may be using assessments that they use face-to-face, but then the pedagogical techniques are different online. So we sort of have to change those assessments as well. So making sure we're not over-assessing students, and when we are, we're assessing them on what they actually learned, what we taught them. Students, I think that they're less likely to cheat when they feel prepared. Because when they feel prepared, they feel confident. And, if they know that if they do fail, that they won't be in trouble, that it won't be the end of the world, then they can learn from their experience and do better next time.
Right. You almost want to build, you're saying you want to build an environment where there shouldn't be that stress, right? Part of maybe what you're talking about is reducing. There's enough stress on everybody right now. Right. They didn't kind of want to take a little bit of that away and just be like, it's okay. We're here to, get better, not get perfect, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on teachers as well. So maybe having less assessment might be something, more beneficial to the teachers, because it's less things to create, to grade, and you can really make sure what you're using is intentional and really attached to what students are doing.
Right. So we've talked about this a little bit, but just is there maybe some other steps that teachers can take to kind of build an environment or a learning culture that it discourages cheating? You talked about this a little bit, I guess. I don't know if there's anything else offhand that comes to mind.
Oh, well, I guess, saying, I said before that we need to make sure we don't put too much pressure on students. And one way we can do that is by preparing them, right? I really think that preparation is key. And instead of having these summative assessments at the end of units and lessons, putting more formative assessments into daily lessons is just a great way to prepare students. And when they're prepared, they won't need to cheat because they know the information. And especially in the virtual environment, I mean, there's so many things that we can do with polling and different quizzes and interactive modules such as like Nearpod. There's just so many things that we can do right there formatively in the lesson. We can identify gaps really quickly, see what students are struggling with, so that the next lesson we can work from there versus waiting until the end. So I think definitely using lessons and using formative assessments during lessons where students don't even know that they're being assessed. And then, when you get to the end for that summative assessment, they're prepared and they're confident and they won't need to cheat because they know the content. So I think that that's something that that we can do, and giving students choice, right? So we talk a lot in education about universal design for learning. And one of those 3 pillars is multiple means of action and expression. And what that means is giving students different ways to demonstrate their knowledge. So we want to make sure that we have variety in assessments. We don't just want to have all multiple choice tests. right? We want to give them a chance to do different authentic assessments, to show what they know in different ways that's good for them. You can do a choice board and say, okay, this is what I want you to show me, but you can pick from these different ways to show me what you know. So keeping all that in mind, I think, students would be excited about the assessments. That they're prepared, and definitely it would discourage cheating. And then going back to what we first talked about, they already know about academic integrity. They know about being a good digital citizen. And have ethical behavior. So you make that a part of the conversation in your class, so it'll be in the back of your mind.
That's great. So one of the things that kind of come up in kind of some of this remote learning is, and I'm sure you've seen it, and I know I talk to other educators and I see, there's a lot of, we'll go with help from parents that, you don't always get, in the regular classroom, that sometimes parents are involved. Is it necessary to kind of involve parents in this whole thing, and not only in terms of discouraging them from being overly enthusiastic and helpful, but also helping them to kind of build these cultures?
Yeah, I think it is important. I think that, and especially for the younger children, because we are talking about everything we're talking about right now is really broad, and there will be different things that you would do with K-6 students versus middle, and high school students. But I think definitely for the younger students, we have to involve parents, because they are part of the learning community. They are helping students set up on Zoom or Google Meet or whatever it is, and we have to have them to be a part of it. And I think that educators have a good opportunity by really working and partnering with parents on this. They can, parents might not be aware of what digital citizenship is. A lot of parents are what they call digital immigrants versus our students who are digital natives, right? So all this is a little bit different for them. So teachers could be teaching the parents as well about what it means to be a good citizen, what academic integrity looks like. So I think definitely partnering with parents and maybe asking parents, hey, I really need you to partner with me on this, and to help your child know how to have ethical and fair and right behaviors online. And I think that that's a great way to build community, to make parents feel a part of it. And if students know that their parents know what they're supposed to be doing, then there's a even, greater chance that they will do the right thing and that they won't cheat, because now it's not just the teacher, but it's also the parents as well.
Right. And I love the idea too of involving the students to teach the parents, because that's reinforcing the learning, right? And showing that they really have understanding, and that's kind of taking it to another level. And that's awesome. That is, and I also love the whole idea too of, like, ultimately, it's hard to make students understand, they're really only cheating themselves with any of this. So we've gone over a couple of things here. What are maybe some other advice or things we haven't touched upon yet that you think are definitely worth mentioning, or educators in K-12 need to kind of be aware of in regard to remote learning and cheating and kind of building the right environments?
I think everything that we talked about today, and the strategies and the pitfalls, it all really boils down to having a growth mindset. And I think that we need to help our students have a growth mindset, and to not allow them to become fixated on grades, right? And how do we do that? We really need to model for students. We need to show them how to cite sources. We need to, make mistakes right in front of students. And it's easy to do it virtually as well. This isn't, working right. This isn't loading. Let me try a different way, whatever it is. But I really think having that growth mindset from the beginning and making that a part of the class, risk taking, making mistakes, and getting back to just learning and not getting A's, because our educative world has become so focused on good grades and standardized testing, and it just creates anxiety and apprehension for students. So I think just creating that welcome environment that we talked about, at the beginning, and helping students develop a growth mindset, will really help mitigate that sort of cheating that may happen in a virtual environment.
Okay, great. This is all great stuff. We could talk about this for hours, obviously. Is there anything else in particular that maybe we haven't touched upon, or you think is worth kind of exploring, in regard to this, that,
Yeah, I think also with tech, I alluded to this a little bit earlier though, but we have so many different technology tools. I mean, technology is ubiquitous, and there's so many different games. Yeah, I think that assessment could be fun. I know that fun isn't usually correlated with assessments, but really I think that if we're using Kahoot and Nearpod and Seesaw and all these other different technology tools all the time, and students are getting assessed in different ways, we're bringing gaming and fun into the classroom. That could really just be a game changer. Gaming could be a game changer.
That's great. No, you're right. Yeah, it's hard. I think sometimes one of the biggest challenges, as we always talk about it, and I'm sure you understand too, it's time, right? It's time to help these educators find these tools, learn how to use them, and then the time to help build their confidence and comfort with doing this, right?
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
And maybe we can, schedule it in. We have to schedule that game time. Maybe it's once or twice a week, not all the time, but there's definitely a chance, opportunity to use technology in different ways to have fun. And students think it's a game, but they're actually learning, and you're assessing them, and you're identifying those gaps, and just real progress is being made.